I'm an alcoholic. My name's Chance. First, I want to say that I am extremely grateful to be sober. I'm grateful that I was asked to be of service tonight, and I'm grateful for my higher power in Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps. And I want to tell you guys that raised your hand that have less than 30 days, welcome. You know, I hope that one of you guys hears something tonight that'll just give you a little bit of hope that you'll try something different. Because when I was new and I first got here, I heard people speak and I thought they were full of shit. And there was no way you were happy. And there was no way life was going good. And I stayed very, very sick for a long time. So my hope for you is that you'll listen with an open mind and maybe find something for you. I'm not going to get into a lot of the crazy war stories, but I will talk a little bit about what I call my ick. You know, there's a few things, a handful of things that had happened in my life that made me sick and that kept me sick. And it wasn't until I decided to do something about it that I wasn't able to get better. So I was born and raised in Springville and Mapleton in Orem with a big Italian Catholic family. And man, they loved to drink. Like I grew up watching my family drink on a regular basis. And a lot of them probably actually should have been members here, you know. In fact, I learned how, at such a young age, I learned how to mix a drink because I was watching the effects that it had on my stepdad. I learned how to mix a drink, and they told me to pour, and I'm like a young kid, and they told me pour a few seconds of whiskey and then some Coke. And when my stepdad was being an asshole, I'd give him like extra seconds, you know? So he would pass out because I couldn't stand him. My parents got divorced when I was 6 years old. And that was the very, very first time that I remembered feeling inadequate. And of course at 6, I didn't know what inadequate was, but I took responsibility for that divorce. And I held on to that for a long time. And the reason for that is because I stayed with my dad. I didn't know that my mom was an alcoholic, and I did not know that my mom was a drug addict. All I got was broken promises. You know, I'll be there to get you. And no offense, you know, she understands, but this is how it was. I would sit at the couch, me and my little brother, we were so excited because we missed our mom. And you know how it is when you're drinking and drugging, you can't show up. And you don't show up when you say you're going to. And what happened is it started to instill this belief inside of me that I wasn't lovable and that I wasn't worth it. And I had a stepmom really short, very, very shortly after that she reminded me of that I was a shitty kid. Your mom's a crack whore. I didn't know what that was. Very, very, very verbally abusive, talked horribly about my mom, and like I said, I just took responsibility for that. You know, I thought it was my fault that my mom was gone, and I didn't know when she was going to come back. And so moving forward, I'll skip forward. So that was the first thing that had happened in my life where I remembered feeling different, right? And then I get this new stepmom, and my dad, he is a raging alcoholic. He was a grumpy old iron worker, meaner than hell. He was mean. He whooped your ass for no reason. When my dad got home, us kids would just scatter because he would physically whoop my ass just because he wanted to. And a lot of it had to do with my stepmom. And one of the things that kept me really sick for a long time, you guys, I went to rehab probably 10 or 11 times, and they always told me secrets keep you sick, you know. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to keep this one because it makes me feel really, really different. And I was going to take it to the grave. And my stepmom and one of her friends, along with a neighbor kid, had sexually molested me. And I was promised if I told my dad that he would for sure whoop my ass and that I'd be called a liar and I would be in trouble. You know, and I believed her, and I kept this secret for a long time. And talk about feeling icky. I remember going to school, and I just felt different. I didn't feel like the other kids. I acted out in class. Any type of attention that I could get when I was little, I would get it. You know, I would get in trouble on purpose so I could go to detention after school so I didn't have to go home because I was so scared to go home. I did not know what was going to happen. That went on for a couple of years. Finally got a little bit older. My academics were pretty good with my dad. He was so strict. You know, he made sure that we did our homework and chores. He was really good at doing that. And I am grateful for him. He passed away several years ago of cancer, and I'm really, really grateful that I got to hold his hand when he passed. And I got to be there with him. And more importantly, we got to make amends. I got to make an amends to him because I was absent in his life for a lot of years, and I'll get to that in a minute, and I'll tell you why. So right around high school, we got the opportunity. Well, a little bit before that, my mom, she got with this new dude. He wasn't a cocaine addict and an alcoholic, but he was definitely an alcoholic. And he was a nice guy. He was a pretty nice dude. And he was a business owner, and he was really successful. And he thought it was very important for my mom to have her kids in her life. And so me and my little brother Dylan, we got to see Mom again on a regular basis. And then we got the opportunity to move in with her. And I could not pack my bags in Springville fast enough to get the hell out of there. And you guys, I felt like I escaped. I felt like I escaped the shit from my stepmom, and I felt like I escaped the abuse from my dad. Like, there was no way he would ever be able to put his hands on me again, and there was no way that my stepmom would ever be able to hurt me again. And the party was on when I moved into my mom's house, because what had happened, and she explained it in the beginning, was a lot of codependency. And how she made up for her lost time was with money. And she had a really good job, and stepdad's making good money, and she'd be like, here's the credit card, you know, and I'd go down to the mall or Abercrombie, and I'd have a heyday. And I'd take my friends with me, and I'd buy them whatever the hell they wanted to, you know. And I was very selfish that way, you know. And I didn't really think about it. I just was stoked that I was getting new stuff. And that relationship with my mom and my stepdad, I watched that, and it was messy. They were both actively, every single night, drinking. Well, finally, I decided, I was too scared to drink or do anything wrong when I was at my dad's. So when I was at my mom's, we had a bar downstairs, and my stepdad used to buy liquor by the cases. So I'm like, you know what? I told my friends in high school, I'm like, hey, I've got like a horse trailer full of beer and liquor from my ex-stepsister's wedding. We should grab a bottle and a couple cases and let's slough school. And I remembered getting drunk, and you know, it didn't really do anything for me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not that guy that, like, the second I drank alcohol, I was like, you know. When I was 19 years old, so I drank here and there, right? And when I was 19 years old, my high school sweetheart was killed. And I remembered feeling so heartbroken and lost, and what am I going to do without this girl? And it was the first girl that I had ever been intimate with. And I was very, very scared to be intimate with a woman, especially after what had happened with my stepmom. And this girl was murdered. And bless her heart, the guys that did it, the one guy got a life sentence and the other guy got out just a few years ago. And on that same day, you guys, and I can't make this up, this is exactly how it went. I was on my way home and I get this phone call and I look at the phone and I pick it up and I say, hello. And it's just this guy named Brad. And I known Brad my whole life. I thought he was one of my mom's best friends. And when we would go out of town, we always stopped and saw Brad, and Brad always had cool boy stuff. Baseball gloves, blow-dart guns, BB guns, cool boy shit. And I always thought, why in the hell does this guy do this? You know, and he knew my girlfriend's dad that had passed away, and he called to say that he was sorry. And at the end of our conversation, he says, hey, Chance, I want to tell you something. I said, okay, what's that? He says, I'm your dad. Excuse my mouth, but I told him now is not the time to fuck with me. And I slammed my phone down so freaking hard in the Tahoe, and I was crying so hard. I felt like I had nobody left. I felt like I had been betrayed by my mom. I felt like I'd been betrayed by my whole family, because later on I found out my whole family knew. But also, after years of therapy and building a good relationship with my mom, I was conceived out of pure love in an affair, you know, and that I do know, and I have forgiven my mom for that. And my question in my head was like, when were you going to tell me? You know, and the answer was, Chance, when is the right time? You know? Some days I wish I never knew, you know? But today I'm grateful because I actually got to talk to Brad today, and I'll tell you guys why here in just a little bit. So that had happened, and I felt like I had nobody. I needed something. So that following weekend I was at a party, and this is where Chance gets very, very sick. And my buddies at the time, I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but pills and other substances were a part of my story. And my buddies, they were doing some pain pills, and he said, hey, do you want to try one? And hell yes, I do. And I tried 20 milligrams of Oxycontin. And I remembered the pain in my heart subsiding. And I was like, oh, I could breathe. And I remembered feeling like, I want to feel like this for the rest of my life. And I am willing to do whatever it takes to stay feeling like this for the rest of my life. And you guys, that's exactly what I did. From that moment on, it progressively got worse. I ended up going from, like, you know, a little tiny line to the first time I went to rehab. When I checked in there, I was doing like 18 to 20, and I'm not saying this to be proud. I'm not proud. I'm saying this with a humble heart. This is just how fast my disease progressed. I was doing about 20 80 milligram pills a day. And the reason that I went to rehab is because my grandfather had passed away, and I decided that I was going to steal 3 checks out of the back of my mom's checkbook and just have the girl I was dating write them out to me, and there wouldn't be a problem, no big deal. And I did. She was gone for the weekend hunting with my little brother, and she came back and she called me and she said, "Chance, did you write these checks?" I said, no, why? She said, "Well, because there's a large amount of money out of my account, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't you, and if it wasn't you, I'm going to call the police and press charges." I said, "Yeah, it wasn't me." I hung up the phone, and I thought for a second about what she said. I better call her back. And I called her back, and I said, "You know what, Mom, it was me. I stole those checks." And she said, "Okay, if you've gotten to this point, young man, you better pack your bags because you're going to rehab." And that's exactly what happened. I packed my bags and I went to treatment, and for 28 days, and I could not wait. All I wanted to do was get the Oxycontin out of my system long enough so I could go back to doing a little bit less, I had a life to get back to. I thought the therapists were full of shit. I don't remember a damn thing about that treatment. I mean, I do remember some of the things, but I don't remember anything helping me because I wasn't willing. I didn't want to get sober. I was being forced into treatment. But there I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. They took us to meetings, and I heard people that were happy, joyous, and free, and I thought, yeah, I'm not worth that. I still carried that belief. And I never thought in a million years I could end up like some of these people with some time. So I did their song and dance for 28 days, and I graduated, And so on the plane ride home, I celebrated and I ordered a drink on the plane because I had such bad anxiety. I had to have a drink. And that drink, you guys, set me in a cycle, set me in one of the craziest cycles that I had ever been in. I could not wait for my mom and dad Brad, because he was actually there, to congratulate me for completing treatment after I just had a drink on the plane. And as soon as they left, this girl that I was dating introduced me to meth. Me and meth do not mix. I swear to God, I'm allergic to whatever the hell they put in that shit. You know that wavy thing at the car dealership that does this, That's me on meth. For real. Noodle groove. My friends called it the Chance Dance. You guys, I would do meth and I would not go to bed. I wouldn't. I refused to go to bed because I was afraid I was going to miss out on whatever we were going to do, or whatever you guys were going to do, or whatever we were going to steal, or how we were going to get the next bag. I was afraid to go to sleep. And you guys, what would happen is I really felt like I was like this, there was a demon inside of me. And I hear my mom whisper, "You could see it in him." Yeah, my eyes would go pure black, and she tricked me. She's like, "Yeah, we're going to go get more drugs." I'm like, "Cool, I'll do that." She took me to the damn hospital, and I had to be put to sleep by a doctor with Halidol. And I later found out what Halidol was used for, and that's what they use at the crazy ward. I didn't know that because I would not go to sleep. And I would stay asleep for 2 to 3 days in the hospital, and then I would go back at it again. I'm so grateful that I'm far away from that today. And it was just this vicious cycle, you guys. And then I ended up in Salt Lake, and I'm doing the black tar heroin and meeting the Mexicans. And Man, I'll tell you what, you want to talk about, I didn't know I had ambition. You talk about, you get me dope sick, I'll do whatever it takes to get better. I mean it. And I'm not bragging, but I put myself and others in some very, very dangerous situations to get loaded. With guns and robbing people and doing some pretty crazy shit to get better. You know, and that's how fast and how sick Chance was. And in fact, I'll share this one thing. My buddy Kenny, we had this plan to rob this guy, and he had a gun, and there was I didn't know there was bullets in it. I thought we were just going to use it to scare the guy. And this dude didn't want to give up the drugs. I'm like, dude, get the gun out. You know, that's the plan. Well, after we got the gun and we're getting high, all of a sudden the gun goes off right through the back of the seat, you know, and it almost hit me. You know, I thought that was cool. I thought I was a gangster. I was like 135, 140 pounds, noodle grooving. My eyes are black, my cheeks are sunken in, and I think I've got it going on. Hadn't worked a day in my life because my mom had bailed me out of everything. Hey, Mom, I need money for rent. Hey, Mom, I need this. Hey, Mom, I need that. You know, and that's how selfish I was. That's how sick I was. And I knew, I mean, I had money to pay my own way with doing illegal stuff, allegedly, you know. But I knew if I called her, she would bail me out. Well, what happened is I ended up getting busted, and I got caught with this second-degree felony, possession in a drug-free zone. And, man, trying to get me on paper and keep me sober when I don't want to be sober is really, really hard. It's really hard to do probation. It's hard to beat the system because you can't, right? So I ended up spending about a total of right around 57 to 60 months locked up. 2 of those years were back-to-back. And what had happened with my addiction is the jail sentence, it was a cycle and a pattern, and we pointed this out when we did my steps in step 6 and 7, is my jail stay got longer and the time I was out got shorter. And I never believed the judge when they told me, oh, you're going to go to prison. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll check in, and then I'm on the run. And I stayed on the run one time, and I ended up going to treatment while I was on the run because I was tired, but I didn't know how to stop, you guys. And you want to talk about a shitty feeling. There is nothing shittier than doing a shot of dope when you don't want to. There is nothing shittier than that. There is nothing shittier than getting high when all you want to do is stop, but it's so damn powerful you can't. That's a shitty feeling. So I went to treatment. They took me out of the state because that's obviously going to cure me, right? There I am in California now. And I went to this place, and when I was there the first time, I opened up a little bit. But like I said, the one secret I was going to keep. You know, but I started to work on little things, right? A little bit at a time because I didn't want to do it all because I didn't really want to get better. Because I heard in Alcoholics Anonymous, once I did an honest and thorough 4th step, I would never have to drink again. And I wouldn't have an excuse. I needed an excuse, so I had to hang on to something. And I chose to. So I went to this place, stayed there for a while, came back to a really sick individual, which happened to be my girlfriend at the time. Man, my picker was shitty. Really. I picked some really shitty people to date, you know. It didn't matter. I remember, you guys, I went home with this girl. I just had met her. She came into this trap house, and I said, "Where are you going?" She said, "To Salt Lake." And I said, "Can I come with?" Sure. I didn't leave her house. I moved right in. Really. And I was on the run. And I stayed on the run, you guys, for 3 years, and the judge was actually quite impressed that I didn't get in trouble in 3 years, so my consequences weren't that bad. So what do? I decide to do it again. And it's this vicious cycle, okay? The last time I got in trouble, I finally believed Christine Johnson, because I'd ended up getting done with probation in Salt Lake, and now I'm on paper down here, and I'm in front of Christine Johnson. And she told me, "Mr. Richmond, she's done with me." She says, "I am ordering you out of the county. And I am ordering you to an inpatient program. And I am ordering you to complete every single level of care. There is no questions asked. If not, you're going to prison." I thought she was serious, but I really didn't believe her. Honestly, you know, because I could get up there and I could soften my face and, you know, like act like I really gave a shit, but no, I couldn't wait to get back to the life that I was living, even though I was miserable. And they sent me to St. George, and I completed every level of care, and I did what I was supposed to do, and then COVID happened, and I was way too cool for Zoom, and I stopped doing all the things that I was doing. And about a week before my year birthday, I decided I was going to do a little bit of meth. Why not? Self-sabotage. And that's definitely a part of my patterns. And we were going to terminate over a Zoom call, but I was way too paranoid to talk to him on Zoom, so I wasn't going to talk to him. So I went back on the run. And I woke up, I think it was like I don't know, it was a couple-week runner. I was in a blackout. I do know that I was in the hospital 3 times, and the only reason I know that is because the hospital bill went to my mom's house. And you guys, I don't remember that. And she called me. She said, "Chance, like, what is going on?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, it says you've been in the hospital 3 times. "Oh, I have?" The last one I vaguely remembered. And I went to the hospital because my friends, like I said, needed to take me there because that's how crazy I was. They were done with me. And I was so disrespectful, and I'm lucky that I got to make amends with the lady there. But she told me to get in the bed. I couldn't hold still long enough. I kept falling out of the bed, so they ended up putting the bed on the ground, and I just told them, "Let me just use the bathroom really fast." And I had this IV PICC line in. And I said, "Let me just use the bathroom really fast, and I promise I'll get in the bed." And so I acted like I was going to the bathroom. I went in there and I did my stuff with this PICC line because I was too dehydrated to actually do a shot of dope. I wanted to die. It was like 115 degrees in St. George. And I was more miserable than I'd ever been in my entire life. And a couple weeks later, I woke up in jail. And I woke up and I was in a straitjacket. And I was in a plastic boat, brick walls, unfamiliar. I'm like looking out this window and I can hear some keys, and I had no idea where I was. And there was a paper on the ground and it was upside down, and I didn't really think anything of it. And finally I saw this guy and I yelled to get his attention. I said, "Hey, where am I?" He's like, you're in purgatory. And I said, how come? He says, well, there's a list of your charges right there. And I grabbed it and I turned it over. And I had a second-degree felony burglary of a dwelling, some possession charges, and I'm on probation, and I'm supposed to be on my last chance. And I remember feeling so relieved. So my sobriety date is August 21st of 2020. And I remembered I could not wait for the withdrawals to just happen and get done so I could get in the blocks and I could get a book, because that's what had helped me the year before, was Alcoholics Anonymous. And I needed to be in jail. Every time that I went, my life was saved. I truly believe that. And every time that I went, I got something from that experience. And one of the coolest things that happened while I was in jail, I was sentenced to this crazy sentence and I could not accept it. And I called my mom from jail and I'm crying because I could not believe the sentence that I got. And my mom says, Chance, just give it up to God and say a prayer. And I said, Mom, there's no God. I don't believe in God. And she says, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you borrow mine? Why don't you borrow my higher power for now? See, my mom, when she got sober, her life kept getting better. My life kept getting worse. So I was like, you know what? This is one woman that I trust, so I'm going to try it. So I started praying to whatever it is that's helping my mom. Will you please help me stay sober today? Will you please help me not mess my life up today? You know, and that's how it started. So I got out of jail. I got released to a treatment center. I did every level of care. I got out and I came back home. And when I came back home, the same dude had been sponsoring me, and he said, Chance, you're going to change everything. And I'd been in the sales industry, and it's really easy, fast money. And what happens to Chance when there's easy, fast money is trouble. You know, and I was done being in trouble, and I was on my last straw. And I knew that. And the judge in St. George made that very clear. If I mess up, I am punching my ticket to prison. And I didn't want to experience that. So my sponsor got me a job, and I was in sober living here in Orem. He took me to work every single day for quite a while. And, you know, I called my sponsor last week. And the reason that I'm emotional, because if it wasn't for him and for God and for Alcoholics Anonymous, I would not be where I am at today, because that man was patient with me. And he loved me through my shit no matter what. He did not validate my bullshit. He did not co-sign my bullshit. And one of the biggest, most powerful experiences I had with him, we're driving down the canyon one day, and I think I'm cool because I wasn't okay to be alone, you guys. I was never okay enough in my own skin to be alone. So I had to get this dating websites. I never met anybody on them, but I just needed somebody to talk to, preferably a hot chick, right? To distract me from me. And I'm showing him this shit in the truck. He says, you know what, Chance, I'm not impressed. He's a married man. He's got a beautiful family. And he believes everything that happens is from God. And he tells me, he says, you know what, Chance, like, when are you going to stop drawing validation from women and outside sources and start drawing validation from your higher power and something from within inside of you? And I broke down that day and I said, how? He says, we're going to do the steps. And I said, okay. And so we worked the steps out of the 12 and 12, and he would make me, he didn't make me. he suggested that I read the first chapter, and I would highlight it, and I'd write down questions if I had it, and with step 1, I definitely knew that I was an alcoholic in my past and all the time that I had done and the powerlessness, like that was easy. But I had to be honest, and I had to be honest about everything. And that one thing that I told you guys I was going to take to the grave, I finally decided to tell somebody about it. And I'm here to tell you, when I did those steps, you guys, I was set free. I wasn't judged. He'd been through some shit too. I was loved. I was loved through the process until I got better, until I learned how to love myself. And I am so grateful for this man. He's one of my best friends from high school. And people gave a shit for a long time about him sponsoring me, but the book says, find somebody that you trust. And that's exactly what I did. I trusted this man, and we have a similar story, and that's why I picked him. And so as we work the steps, and he starts pointing out some of the patterns that I have, and the defects come up, and I get all up in my feelings, and I call him. He say, "Well, did you pray about it?" He said, "Well, no." He says, "Okay, well, why don't you pray and sit on it for a little bit, then call me back, like if you still feel some type of way." And I would say my prayers, and I would write a gratitude list. And I'm here to tell you guys, especially you guys that are new, I believe in gratitude wholeheartedly. I kept a gratitude journal for years. And every single day, not only did I write what I was grateful for, I wrote why I was grateful for it. And what happened is my perception began to change. And the way I saw myself began to change. And the way I saw others began to change. And the way I saw the world began to change. And I became less selfish. And I wanted to do for people instead of to people. Because my whole life I did to. I didn't do anything for anybody. I had nothing. I hadn't accomplished shit, you guys. I had nothing to be proud of. So I had to give back, so I decided I would sponsor some guys, and I started sponsoring some guys, and I saw myself in each one of these guys that I sponsored, because when it came to certain steps, like step 4, all of a sudden they didn't want to do the steps, or they maybe wanted a different sponsor. And that's exactly what I had done for a while. 1, 2, 3, and then drink when step 4 came around. But today, my life is filled with so much beauty because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know if there's any dads in here, but you dads are my heroes. And I mean that. Something that kept me really sick and that made me feel really inadequate, even in sobriety for a long time, is that I didn't have kids. And I thought I was running out of time. I'm 41. Didn't want to have kids too late. I didn't want to have kids with just some random chick doing dope. And this morning, we got an email because we're pregnant, and I got to lay down with my fiance and my 2 bonus kids and read the gender of our baby. Thank you. And that is God doing for Chance what I cannot do for myself. And it's not just that, I struggled through this process. Because every single month when nature did its thing, I thought it was my fault, And my sponsor said, "Chance, you've got to let it go." And I could not let this go because I wanted to force it so bad. And I'm just here to tell you guys, things happen on God's time, not Chance's time. And I'm grateful for that. you know. So I'm back. So I originally started this job with my sponsor as a pipe layer in the trench. And I definitely thought I was too smart for that, which I was. Like, I'm not being cocky or egotistical, but I was definitely too smart to be in the trench. Because I was really good at math and I have really good hand-eye coordination and I knew how to operate heavy equipment. And I wasn't going to work for the kind of money that I was working for. So after a while, I talked to my sponsor about it, and it was time for me to move on to a different company where I could make more money. And he agreed that that was the best decision for me. And what had happened is, I went from one company and kind of to another, and I just kept learning. I wanted more. I didn't just want to settle. And that's because of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's because God works in my life, and I've got a family that I've got to provide for. And when I do something, I want to be the best at it, right? Am I the best all the time? No. But I am good at what I do because I have a passion for it and I take pride in what I do for work. And a couple months ago, my sponsor called me and I was unhappy with the job that I was at because I was misled. And he said, "Hey, can you do X, Y, and Z?" And I said, "Yeah." "Why?" And he said, "Well, because we have a position available if you'd like to come back and as a foreman. And it comes with a truck and a gas card and, benefits and, all that good stuff." And I said, "Sure," And so I get to spend a lot more time with my sponsor now. And, I called him the other day after our doctor's appointment, after our ultrasound. And I was emotional, but it wasn't sad. It was tears of gratitude. And I was just thinking about, how grateful I am for my sponsor. Because if it wasn't for him and for God and for the people that I have in my life that have supported me, I would not be where I am at today. And especially without Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm telling you guys, if you're new, give this deal a shot. You've got nothing to lose. Like, you can always go back to that same miserable shit. Always. But every time I did that, I always ended up back here. It always got worse. It never got better. And today my life continues to get better. And I have the most beautiful, loving fiance that has put up with me and has accepted me for me. I haven't had to tell a lie. I haven't needed to. I haven't wanted to. And she's not one of us. But she also supports my recovery. And when Chance gets a little crazy and I start getting in my feelings, she tells me, "Hey, why don't you go to one of those meetings?" And I'm grateful that I get to be a bonus dad to these kids because their dad has not been in the picture for quite some time. And I love these two beautiful kids more than anything in this world. They are my pride and joy. And Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to be a dad. Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to be a good employee. Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to be a good fiance and a good son. And Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to be a good member of society. So I am extremely grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you guys have doubts, set that shit aside. Try something different. Try something different. I would have sold myself so short because what I had dreamt of, I surpassed that years ago. I haven't thought about having a drink. I have not thought about I haven't had a I honestly, to tell the truth, I haven't had a single craving. That's not my first thought when I have a bad day. I pick up the phone. I talk to somebody. I write a gratitude list. Today, the relationship that I have with my mom, I am so grateful that it's been repaired. I am so grateful because me and that woman went through hell. And a lot of that I didn't share about. But a very, very sick, codependent relationship with drugs. And then even in recovery, you know. Sometimes she wants her program, my program, to look like hers, and that's not how she finally let that go, thank God. You know, because I had to find my way. You know, and I'm grateful for the women that supported her to help her get better so she could show up and be a mom. And today, we have a healthy relationship with boundaries that are actually kept. Today, my boundaries aren't compromised. Today, I'm not willing to compromise who I am for somebody else or for some bullshit. I'm not willing, because the second I start doing that and the second I start keeping secrets and I start lying, it creates this cycle which was pointed out to me in the steps that I can't get out of, and I get sicker. And then I'll eventually end up drinking and using. So I completed paper quite a while ago. You know, I terminated early. It was one of the best feelings ever. And I've been invited back into the jail. I've gone probably 5 or 6 times in my own clothes. And my own underwear, you know. There is nothing worse than wearing those damn green underwear in that jail in a jumpsuit, you know. And every time I go there, it's really, really powerful for me because I spent so much of my life in jail. I did. And I love walking in and speaking to the inmates because there was a program in there that really helped me out. And not only do I use Alcoholics Anonymous, but there's Fit to Recover and there's the RISE program from the jail that really, really helped me out. So I use all the support that I can. It's not just Alcoholics Anonymous for me. There's multiple resources for me. And I'm grateful for that because these people have stuck by my side. I've ran ideas by them. I don't make decisions on my own anymore. I don't. Because I know most of the time it's not a good idea. So I talk with my sponsor. I'll talk with my fiance. I'll talk with another alcoholic. And I just want to share that I am extremely grateful that I was asked to speak tonight and be of service. And once again, if you guys are new or if you're in treatment, get honest. Give this thing an honest shot, and you will be amazed. And you will be set free. And I'll make you one promise: you will never have to drink or use again, even if you want to. Thank you all for 12-stepping me.